Opitaan me toimittaa.
Se oppii vaan kokemuksen kautta.
Onko tää jotain kertoista? Story on
kyllä mä nyt käyn näitä asioita tietysti jaostossa läpi, mutta se olisi ihan meidän
They don't want to let you go at the end. 2 minutes. 2 minutes. Will that suit you? Folks, we have some spaces up front if anybody would like to up front.
Espeos ottelee pääkaupunkin puolesta. Se liittyy itse asiassa mitään tapaa aikaisemmin. Ei Kursnanissa on paljon jäänyt Berliinin kanssa. 2 tuntia autolla Berliinistä. Pahimmillaan on mennyt 5 tuntia minibussissa lentokentältä.
Oliko sumua? Ei se ole pelkästään liikettä.
Tiputteli ihmisiä joka paikkaan ja tietoa, että se on matkapalvelu. Periaatteessa
ensimmäinen, kun mä kysyin, että ollaanko Espoosta. Varmaan moni muukin nimittäin
All right, so you should help me. We need a bell. We need a ding-a-ling-a-ling. Let's get started. A few announcements that I forgot to make the first time around. I won't give you guys the whole spiel again since many of you were here for the first session, but a few things that I forgot to mention. One, that if you are a teacher, we'd love to have you tweeting about Total Startup.
Em siết chặt Hoàng Văn xíu.
Không được rồi, cái này phải có cái đồ ấy.
Nó thôi.
Không được đâu, giờ cứ ấy đại đi.
Không đã được.
Vậy em bưng nguyên cái ra nha, đổi cái ra.
The second point, we have a photographer in the room for this session. We will not be getting in your space to take these pictures, but what I would like to say is that if you're uncomfortable having us use your image in the picture, we use the pictures for promo and application. If you're uncomfortable having your image appear, please let one of us in the picture know so that we make sure to edit out of any pictures that we have. Peter, am I forgetting anything else?
What's your name?
Oh, my name is Katie, like coffee. Katie, like coffee. Yes. But the names you really want to know are that of Aki and of Santeri, who are here this evening with us from SBO Software, and they are going to talk about how to attract customers and how to attract investors to your business idea. So thank you very much for being here.
Okay, thank you. So we are going to discuss about these things, and this is planned to be more like interactive session. Whatever you have in your mind, please ask during our presentation. So we are happy to answer. This might take, depends on us, but it might take 1 hour or 1.5 hours. And we have been discussing about these things earlier, for example, at Arctic 15 or similar events, and it's most useful if you start to ask questions. So whatever you have in mind, just ask. There are no stupid questions, and we try to answer to your every question. So I'm Aki, and
My name is Santeri, and obviously if you have any questions, we'd love it if you ask them at the end of the slide. It'll make it maybe a bit easier if we have planned to go through maybe the info you're asking in the end of the slide. So at the end of the slide, we'll ask if you have any questions.
okay, these things we are going to discuss today. So we are going to go through background of our company, background of ourselves, and then we are going to jump into typical startup. What kind of companies are startups, and what are the business challenges that startups are going to meet in the beginning and during the growth phase. Then we are concentrating on how to create growth. Growth is a key thing for startup. And part of that is how to sell to your customers. You have some product, service, or whatever you are trying to sell, how to sell it to your customers, and how to sell your company to your investors, how to proceed so that you get those investments and go up and up as developing your company. And then we are going to discuss about software development. Quite a lot of companies today, even if you have something else than software related product, you need some digitalization or software related visibility for your product. So this is the agenda, and these things are going to be discussed.
Are you going to define what is startup?
Yes, it's going to happen very soon. So this is my background. I have been working in different larger enterprise companies, quite often running some business unit in there. So actually I have been also working in those larger companies, like working in a startup, just growing the business in that business unit and getting better results every year. Then I have also been working in some startup, and also been at this moment working with actually a huge amount of startups. I always say that I have some 30 to 40 startups that I call through continuously, but actually it might be much bigger at this moment. So at this moment I'm working at SBO Software, and SBO Software does huge amount of work with software companies in Finland and in some other countries.
Right, and my background is more in sales. I've been in B2B sales and B2C sales for the past decade. And I've essentially gone through the sales gauntlet. I've done all kinds of sales. I've done telemarketing, I've done door-to-door sales of different kinds of home security systems. I've sold car washes, so I've been through it all, and that's given me quite a good toolkit when it comes to sales. Even though some of you might just internally cringe a bit at those jobs, they do give a lot of important lessons, and I think that's something we're going to be going through a bit later. My current role is sales development representative, mainly hunting leads, refining leads, and also partly in charge of developing our business processes.
What you have done with blockchain?
Blockchain, that's actually a new thing that we're working on currently. So ICOS, essentially, if someone wants to bring a new blockchain related project to the market, be it a new cryptocurrency or something else, we're doing that.
Actually, at this moment, we are getting 3 to 4 cryptocurrency leads per day. That's the situation at this moment. It's overflowing us at this moment, and it's let's say a little bit difficult to handle all of those leads.
Yes.
But it's a happy problem.
Let's see when they go down.
Let's see.
It must happen sometime.
But at this moment, everybody is trying to create their own cryptocurrency, and we are going to discuss a little bit about it, because this is also quite a good way for startup to get some investments. But that is one part of our presentation today. So SPL Software, as we are now discussing about startups, SPL Software has been startup some 8 years ago, and it has been founded with Pavel and Silvia Rokovic, who were studying here in Finland. They were living several years here in Finland, and they were studying at the Tampere University of Technology. They were working in several Finnish software houses, and then they moved back to Poland and started this company. So that's the reason SPL Software has Finnish roots and founded here in Finland, and head offices in Poland, in Poznan. And from my point of view, SPL Software has been created 8 years ago, and I joined the team something like 2.5 years ago, almost 3 years ago. And I considered SPL Software, when I joined up to the team, that from my point of view, SPL Software looked like a startup company, even if it has been working with Finnish customers and international customers some 6 years. But every time, a lot of companies, smaller ones, can be considered as startups, as startups in some businesses. And I have been developing so many companies from scratch or from some specific business area, larger and larger. So I also considered SPL Software as a startup. Okay, we have been doing a lot of things here in Finland, so probably most of you might know Sanoma Oikotie jobs recruitment system. We have been doing a lot of industry automation. We have been working with startups. During the last, let's say, 1.5 years, we have started the cooperation in Finland with 14 new startups. So this is a quite important part for us to work with startups. So I'm personally highly interested in growing Finnish startups and getting to those companies international presence and so that those companies succeed. And we have been doing a lot of things to help those companies. And because of this background of SPL Software, this is in a way quite important thing for us in general. So we have a presence in Central Europe. We have presence in the USA. We have customers in Asia, Middle East, in a lot of places. But we still spread this Finnish style of working. This is our way of doing, and this is the root base of our company, and this is how we work in general in this company.
Are you targeting Africa?
Yes, we haven't had so many customers from Africa at this moment, but no problem. I mean, at this moment when we get these cryptocurrency leads everywhere, we have already got some leads from Africa. But
Are you planning it in the future, like to try to connect the African market?
it's
Because
it's not out of the question. From our point of view, we see the whole world as our market. So not any specific region is out of the question. So no difference. Because we work with software development, mostly we work remotely. So we do the software development mostly in Poland. We have 70 software developers, but actually if we think all of those companies and those teams that we have also for some not so common technologies, we have up to 70 developers available. The core team is something like 50 developers. But mostly we are doing the software development from Poland, and it makes no difference if the customer is in Africa, if it's in Japan, if it's in the USA, and so on. So from our point of view, it makes no difference.
because I am interested about the payment system in Africa, because we have really problems to pay online.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you have that kind of solution.
Yeah. We have actually a lot of payment systems expertise. We have several developers that have been working in banks before joining to SPLT. We have several payment systems and security experts, and we are now doing this cryptocurrency things. And for most of those, for example, those Finnish startups, we do payment system integration. If you are having some kind of mobile app, quite often you need some kind of integration into payment system, so that you get somewhere money to your startup or whatever company.
Like now, I have designed an app with a platform, mobile platform with coding, and I am stuck on the payment system. I try to implement the in-app billing subscription, but because I don't know well the coding system, so I am stuck on it. So I don't know.
Okay, but no problem, we can help. It's business as usual, everyday thing for us. We are doing that all the time. So this is one key thing. In general, we are going through it later, but it's one key thing for every startup to think about your monetarization. How do you get money? If you have product, if you have service, how do you get your money? Do you have webshop? Do you have some payment system integration, whatever you need? But you need to get money to your company. And payment system, it's a critical thing, so that your startup will succeed.
And we do a lot of different kind of integrations. So if it doesn't really matter what kind of payment system it is, because essentially usually the technology behind it is quite similar. So it's possible to integrate these things into, for example, mobile apps. As we've seen with Apple Pay and other solutions, money keeps moving to mobile devices, or payments keep moving to mobile devices. And that's definitely a trend that we've sort of been on.
How much would be the cost of the service?
That depends on the software behind it. So it depends on how many integrations you'd have to make, and obviously what kind of software the product that's using it would be. But
yeah, it's complicated. We can discuss about it offline.
Okay.
because we need to know a lot of more information
sure.
from your side, and then it's easier to answer. If you go to a typical startup, what kind of companies are startups?
maybe at this point we could ask if you guys actually are at the moment founders in startups, and what kind of startups they are. If just maybe a show of hands on who's actually in funding phase of a startup currently. So 3, 4, and can we ask what the field they're in?
IT.
Yeah.
It's
Digital services.
implementing that. But actually, my company is working in Iran, and we have some sponsors there.
Yeah.
We are planning to extend it to Europe.
Yeah.
So we have some sponsors there. It means that we are kind of successful there, but it's hard to start with a new life.
Digital services.
And well, actually, it's we have two products, different
Okay.
products, and then we have the digital system.
Yeah.
One is about IoT platform, IoT system for smart homes, software for physical security, and so on.
Yeah.
The other is about DCIM, data center infrastructure monitoring.
Yeah. And yours was mobile?
Yeah, update loop and logo design.
Yeah.
This kind of social marketing.
Yeah. Okay. There's a third one also.
I have a recruitment platform.
Okay. So also digital service. Yeah.
And there was one more somewhere there.
What's the one more? Yes.
Okay. And how many of you have started your company already and have got first investment round? And do we have any of those here?
So here let's see the investment phase.
Okay, so it sounds, if I understand this correctly, it sounds like that most of you are just thinking about how to start a company and
No,
what to.
I have that
Yeah.
because I have already some apps on Google Play. Some are free and some is you have to pay to have it.
Yeah.
Just some little apps and some with service, but there is no payment system yet.
Yeah, that is okay. But most of the others didn't raise their hand, so I suppose that most of the others just are thinking how to start a company.
I think we have two
Yes.
questions. Yeah.
Yeah, didn't start the company, but I joined really early after they raised the seed investment. So now we're moving into convertible note or Series A funding, so that's why I came.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll be going through that.
We are signing a degree where you actually create a company and learn by doing. So we are actually a company.
Okay.
Yeah.
But this is just for background information so that we know what kind of message to tell you. So we concentrate on that area that you are, so that you are starting the company and you are on the early stages, so that you have not been collecting a huge amount of money or are in advanced stage. So we target our message to your level. So that was the reason for this background question. So this is quite okay. I suppose that this hits most of you because typical startup company has some suitable business idea and a group of persons that share the idea and try to run the company. Based on my experience, typical amount of persons in startups in Finland at least is something like 3 to 4 persons. Sometimes 2, but quite often 3 to 4 persons. And I hope that those persons have different skills. But in some cases they seem to be quite similar. But in optimal case, those persons do have, each person do have different skills. And we are going to go through that a little bit later. But the problem is that there is not always enough experience. There is a good business idea, but experience is missing. And that's the reason that we are also having these kind of educational sessions, telling you what needs to be taken care and what is useful to know. But very typical thing for every startup is that there is not enough money and there is not enough time. When it starts to go, it happens so that you start to be very busy if you want to expand your company. So a lot of problems with resourcing. That is a typical thing. And then you also have to show to investors in very short time that this company is valid and you have a good business idea and your company is going to be worth of all of those investments. This is a typical thing. You have to be doing this several times because you are going to get several investment rounds and you are going to tell it several times. You are going to do this pitching to several investors several times, and that is going to be your life. we just define how do we see the targets of for the success, how do we think that the startup is successful? These are some typical things that define somehow that startup is successful. So if the startup company has several persons, it's preferable that everyone has different type of personality, different type of experience, different type of skill set. So in optimal situation, for example, you have 4 different founders, and every one of those has different set of skills. And if you utilize all of those skills to maximum, then you know that you do whatever needed to get your startup to be successful. And one critical thing when you are trying to sell something is to have those selling skills. Sometimes startup founders might be technically oriented. There are a lot of those software-related startups or digitalization-related startups. And quite often, if you are technically oriented, you might not have enough experience how to do solution selling, and that's a critical thing.
It also comes down to personalities quite often. So, for example, if you have a marketing person or a salesperson who's always on the go, they're always full of energy, you might not want the same kind of aspects from, for example, the person who runs your finances. You want them to be sort of more grounded and more sort of stable instead of being sort of hyperactive all the time.
This scalable resourcing is critical. Typically, it happens when the company starts to grow. It needs to grow very fast. And recruitment of the resources for a startup company might be difficult. At this moment, for example, with software development, in Finland, actually, it's a general thing in Western Europe that there is a huge problem to get skilled software developers. I mean, if you are a startup company, you try to make a lot of tricks to get software developers, but startup companies go up and down. You get some money, then you don't have money, then you get the next round. You have to scale up and down, and that's problematic. You might not get all of those resources. So you have to handle that somehow, and we are going to discuss how it's done. But this is quite it. I mean, exponential growth. If you are starting startup company and get exponential growth, and if that company is faster than some other competitor, then you might win this competition.
And the timing is also very
yeah, timing is critical. That is very critical. And these are typical issues. There are a lot of issues, and quite a lot of startups fail. But if you know these potential issues, it's much easier to be prepared for these kind of things. So if you have a bad business idea, it means that you don't get money. That's very clear. But then it might be also this wrong timing. You need some competitors, but those competitors might be faster. They might have better business idea. So then you might fail. And this, you have to be selling your business idea to investors several times. So you need to have all of those product features. You have to have a good team, and you have to show that you can scale. Those kind of things are typically needed for getting more investments. And this sad to say, but there are some sort of startups that have been coming to discuss with us that they need this kind of software solution, this kind of thing to fulfill their needs, but they haven't been thinking about how to monetize their solution. So then we have some up and tell it that okay, how are you going to get your money out of your system? You have this good product, but you need to get money. Sometimes user interface or the design of the product or solution is not so good. Whatever you are doing, if it's thermostat, if it's some healthcare service, I don't know whatever you are thinking, but the design is the key thing that your customer sees. If the design is bad, it's not going to sell.
This is quite common among people who are deep into technology, especially if they're like doctors or something of technology, that they usually tend to make these what we call engineer interfaces, which, okay, it works, it's clear, but it's not suitable to show to a customer. So that's usually a thing that you need to take into account.
And then you need this partnering and support and maintenance of the solution. Partnering is important. You need to have these investors. You need to have your network, which is very useful when you start to sell your company and your solution. So, how to do this growth enablement before thinking anything else? This is the optimal startup team. I just discussed about these different personalities, different persons, and quite often the business idea owner is the one who is the first founder of the company. He or she has the best business idea that I want to do this. I want to be the first one in the world that is going to do this kind of solution, and this is going to change this business area. At this moment, in this world, we also need some technology owner. If it's just some service solution that doesn't need any technology, then it might not be so important. But in most of the cases, you need digitalization and for the visibility. Then you need also technology owner. And this monetizing owner, CFO, whatever, who takes care of that everybody in this startup company understands how this company is going to create money. If the company is not going to create money, it's not going to get the next investment round, and it's going to fail in some phase. And this solution, sales owner, critical thing, you have some kind of solution, you need to know how to sell solutions. And potentially some software developers and advisors are very critical.
Any questions so far?
From the last or the previous slide, can they be the same people?
Yeah,
this
can be combined. I mean, if it's a startup company with two founders, you have to have these skills in one person. But when startups tend to be quite busy, and you are working around the clock. And if you have a couple of things that you take care of, it might happen that you are concentrating either one of those, and it's not going to work so well. So sooner or later, you need to have at least these 4 different types in your company. You can start with a couple of persons, but if you are going to grow, you need to have a little bit more.
If the business idea owner doesn't have technical skills, he have only his idea, how can they share the action? I don't know if it's action or...
Yeah. It's not a requirement. I mean, we have been working with startup companies that the founders, for example, a couple of persons, had no exact technical expertise, but they did know very well how this business idea should work. And then they were able to explain to us what is needed, and then we designed user interface, then we designed the technologies, then we designed all the other things that are needed. But they knew that, okay, this is what we want. We want this look like this feature look like that, and that can be outsourced. But it's very good when your company is growing that you have this technology owner, because then you know what you buy. But it depends. This is a picture that is critical for startup. You need to need to start your company so that you plan for exponential growth. And that is the key. I mean, there are, at the same time, there might be some other companies doing the same thing. But those companies that are faster in growing, they will win. So it's better to have this kind of planning session when you are starting the company. So you concentrate on defining your business areas, you monetize those different kind of things very well. And then you start to do it. And when you do it continuously and properly, execute the actions that you have planned, then you are going to get this exponential growth. You decide the markets, you decide what you do, and then you just expand if it's going well. You might set your target, for example, after 3 years we are there. But if it goes okay, then you are much, much higher. And this is always target for startups, that you more or less plan for exponential growth. We are going to discuss about this a little bit later also. Now we are in a world when, if you are, for example, manufacturing some kind of lamp or thermostat, whatever, you can have this interesting concept, interesting product, and think that okay, it will be selling in the nearest shop. But that will not work if you have a competitor that has remote management system of thermostats. If the competitor is working with Facebook integration, if this competitor is showing the pricing in web page and has web shop, that is not going to work. So you need to plan this digitalization to get visibility, to get market share for your product, to get different kind of management actions, so whatever you need, what kind of product you are going to have. This also creates the image to your product, image to your whole company. This is a critical point. Now, this is just the background for your company, and now we concentrate how do we sell these products to your potential customers.
So essentially, lead generation, that's been my field for a few years now, and we're going to be going through that next. Essentially, what you're going to want to start with, especially if it's a new company, is sort of define the target range of customers who you want to reach. So if it's a certain field, for example, if it's certain technology, or maybe it's B2B sales, maybe it's B2C sales, you have to make sure that that's sort of locked down when you start generating your leads, because if you keep changing it, it's going to be a never-ending task. Then you need to find the decision makers. If it's a company you're trying to reach, you sort of have to make sure that you reach the right person in the company. It's not enough to send a mass email to their info address. That's not going to work. You sort of have to do some work there and try to find the people who are, if it's a technology company and you want to maybe sell them something that helps them do their job better, find their CTO. So the person who's responsible for the new technological acquisitions or decides what gets into production next. That's the right person to reach. When you know who you want to reach and what field, you start to contact your leads also depending a bit on who they are. So if it's a CTO, he's probably pretty busy people, so you probably might have to send a few emails first to sort of activate them. Maybe go to events where they go and sort of get some FaceTime with them there. And maybe then later on, when you've already established sort of a connection with them, you can start calling them and going through that way. If it's something like middle management, you might get away with maybe finding a list of people on an online database and then just picking up the phone and making calls. The important thing there is you're going to get a lot of no's. You're going to get a lot of rejection. That's the thing you have to deal with. And you sort of have to go into it knowing that it's not going to be easy. You're probably, especially if you are the person who's behind the whole idea of the business, you have a pretty clear and good idea of it in your head, but it's not that easy to sort of explain that to the customer in a few sentences where they also understand what you want them to understand. So that's something to keep in mind. The materials you're going to be sending, even if your company is new, the stuff you're sending, for example, if you're sending an email attachment where you sort of tell more about your company or your product, it can't look like the company was established this year. So it has to look like you've been around for a while. It makes a big difference. And if you're going to do it internally, make sure you select the right people. It's going to have to be a person who sort of has this perseverance, despite getting no's for maybe a few days in a row. And you know, most people just lift their hands up and walk away at that point, right? So you're going to have to pick someone who can sort of take that and still carry on. And quite often in lead generation, outsourcing is a quite common option. You can sort of pay companies to get these sort of pre-selected leads for you, and then once they've made maybe the first contact, you can take over from there. It's a bit easier. But of course, with limited resources, it might be also a challenge too.
One common thing also remembering here in lead generation phase is that you might also want to show your pricing. If you have some product, you might want to show in your leaflet, in web page, whatever, you want to show your price. I mean, there are a lot of potential customers that select those. If you are not showing your price, okay, thrown away. I don't know, this looks good, but no price, okay, I select next one. So you have to be prepared to be able to look professional and look professional with competitive pricing. That's the point. It's so easy and fast to throw away some company with very good product with no price.
What happens if pricing is not that simple to use? You have like a one-size-fits-all.
I have been most of my life in selling very complex ICT solutions, data center solution with ERP systems, huge amount of servers and storage and services. But then you make a leaflet that tells that this kind of ERP system with 20 servers and virtualization and database and storage and backup system. You just tell that this amount of features, okay, this is going to cost 30,000 euros, 500,000, 3 million, whatever. But you have some kind of price. It will never work with the specific customer, but it will just get some kind of understanding. So that is the way of doing it.
Any other questions?
Can you add it to the slides, the price? It's not there.
Yeah, it's not there. We can add it.
Yeah.
No problem.
Very cool. Thank you.
Then about this selling cycles and solution selling. Quite often it's too optimistic. You have expectations that now I have started this company and I have this very good product that I think this is excellent one. And then you more or less expect that, okay, for some strange way, some 10 million people actually now understands with some strange method that, okay, you have invented something new and they just come to order the product from you. That's not going to work that way. You have to select some target group, some company that you think that could be a suitable reference later. Then you reach some key persons and tell your message for 3, 4, 5, huge amount of times. They need to hear the message several times before they start to order anything from you. Selling cycles can be 3 months to 10 years, whatever in between that. There are a bunch of companies or end users, depending on are you selling to companies or just regular users, that might have the need. They might have the need, and you have the solution, and the price looks fine. They might make decision in 3 months. That is possible. And in in some case faster. But it's not the normal case. So you have to be going to be telling your story several times, and then you start to get some buyers.
And this is something to keep in mind also when you're making your budget or your sort of those burn down projections on how long you're going to be. If you get a Series A investment, then you have to sort of count into the price that it's going to take a while until you get the first money rolling in also. So don't be overly optimistic.
Quite often, a lot of things in startups are going half-a-year cycles, investments, development, and that kind of stuff. But the plan for solution selling or company growth needs to be thought so that it's something like 3 years. You have to be making a 3-year plan for doing these kind of things. And if you are not familiar with solution selling, this is spin selling or similar methods. Just try to learn something from spin or similar one solution methods, because you have to understand that how your solution is sold to the potential customer. And if the customer just orders, that's not selling, it's just ordering. If it's so excellent product that everyone says, I want, then it's fine. But that is not a typical case. Because you understand that selling is starting when the customer says no. This is the normal way. And then you start to sell, and then you get the first reference, and then you can use that reference for the next ones. Quite often you use 10 times more time with the first reference than the next ones. So you need to concentrate to be doing the first one very well. And if it's done well, the first reference can also get some cheaper price, better service, whatever. But then you get the first reference, and then it's easier. This is sometimes a little bit problematic with startups. You need to understand that you need to keep your customer message. You need to keep it for a long time. You need to make this 3-year plan for company growth, and you need to make business plan and a plan of your business message. And I have seen some of those startup companies that have been changing their products, product names, web pages, company image, company colors, whatever you are changing. Then it means that some of your potential customers have visited your web page. Okay, that looks fine. There is a good product. Pricing looks fine. But quite often they are in a wait-and-see mode, because they just check, okay, this is some kind of new company. This is some kind of new, very innovative product. And they a little bit wait that if this company is going to be present still after half a year or something like that. They wait that you are still there, your product is still valid. But if you are going to change your product, your company image, whatever, it starts from zero. They are just thinking, okay, something has changed, it was not valid. Then they go to some other company and buy a little bit similar product from that company because you changed something. So keep your message steady. All the time the same message. You can make some changes, but don't change the company message. That is a critical thing. But how to prepare for this exponential growth? This is my normal personal method that I'm using all the time. Regardless if it's new business, regardless if it's current business that needs to grow, regardless whatever. This is the phase. Do it once and replicate. If you have a business model, you have a product and you have a business model for that product. Then you select, for example, typical customer set for that product. Then you design it first well for that customer set. Then you do it once. Then you get the first reference. Then you run the same story with the second one without modifications. You have done it once, do it well enough once, and then just copy. You can use the first reference and run several companies through. You can do the first product version. If it's okay, then don't modify it very much, just add features in there, then it's fine. You have these customer references, you have pricing model. You just don't chase the pricing model all the time. Then just this counter starts from zero again. You select some suitable partner. Just select one first and use that as a reference. Then select some other partners from other business areas. And that's the way to do it. Do it once, properly enough, and then copy. You don't have enough resources, just concentrate on doing one thing at a time. And when you have been doing all of these steps, then you know that this is going to grow.
What is this MVP, most valuable product?
Minimum viable product. So in software development, this means that you design the product. For example, if it's mobile app, you design the key features that are the most critical ones.
Yes.
And then the users start to use those. Then you slowly add more and more features, and then you get more and more users, because those first ones are going to spread out the word that okay, this is excellent mobile app. Yeah. And it might be so that there are only 3-4 key features that are done first, and then you add more and more. Yeah. Correct time. You were asking about timing, and this is a thing. For every solution that you have in your mind, there is one correct timing, or might be multiple correct timings, and it's just like these singers or whatever movie stars. For example, like Bruce Springsteen was singing 20 years without any huge notice with his own style, and then suddenly he just came very popular. It just happened to be a correct time and correct songs and so on, and he was popular something like 15 years, and then he disappeared, and actually he came back again. But this is how it goes. It's the same thing with the solution. You have some kind of solution, and you need to have the correct time. But it means that if it's a correct moment, you have to remember that there will be competitors, because all the other companies find the same solutions almost at the same time, if it's a correct time. So you need to be prepared to be better than those competitors.
Also, having competitors is a good sign. Then you know sort of the idea is valid and you should pursue it. But if there's no competitors, then you have to sort of, that should be a red flag. You should be thinking about why is this happening and why is no one else pursuing the same thing.
Does this apply only to like software or technical solutions only, or do you think it also broader to consumer goods, services, kind of the correct time thing?
Yeah, it's whatever solution. That's the reason that I put this Bruce Springsteen here, because it doesn't mean that it's some specific thing. There are a lot of areas that are changing. I mean, the world around is changing all the time. But then there is a specific moment that some technology, some service, some business idea could be valid in some specific moment.
But it's very difficult to know when
yes, it's difficult to know. And quite often there are the first companies that have invented it, but quite often the first companies are not the ones that get the most money. So typically it's the second or third company who like copies the ideas of the first company, and then they get most of the money. Yeah, whatever. And like Xerox invented this graphical user interface. 10 years before Apple, and Apple copied it and so on.
Yeah.
Those kind of things.
Kodak also is, I think, a good example. Obviously, Kodak made film back in the day when film was the only method of getting videos or pictures. Then they actually invented the digital camera. They were like, it's going to eat up a lot of our sales if we start making these digital versions, and they sort of buried that project. Someone else came along at the right time, started selling digital cameras, and now Kodak is essentially out of business. So timing is
and Nokia have also done this. That's very forward.
Yeah.
Okay.
That is a lot of those examples.
Yeah.
Well, this is what happens with new ideas. If you have a totally new idea, it's hard work to sell if you are the first one. So this Mahatma Gandhi was saying quite well that first they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you, and then you win. This is a very good description of what happens when you start with totally new idea. And I have been following quite a lot with Elon Musk and his doings, and he has been doing a lot of things as first in several areas, like batteries, like solar energy, like cars, like SpaceX, and tunnel boring, and a lot of different things. And for example, this SpaceX and Tesla start to be in the win phase at this moment. But he all the time generates new ideas, and there are a lot of those that fight against him because those ideas are so. I mean, they are spoiling a lot of businesses from other companies. So that's the reason that other companies actually don't like those. And as we told, competitors are needed.
Yeah.
So this is a critical thing. When you are telling the investors that I have this idea, you need to have some competitors so that this is viable thing. Quite often it's said for startups that you need to fail fast. That is okay, you can fail fast, but don't show it. I mean, fail fast internally. Startup, if you are a startup company, you need to test something. Is this sales model valid? Is this product valid? Is this pricing valid? Is this customer group valid? A lot of things need to be tested, but don't modify your web pages, don't modify your product until you know if this current product is selling. So it might take half a year before you see that, okay, this product version A, is it selling or not? Before you delete it and move to totally different product B. You never know if you just wait 1 month and then decide, okay, this product A was not successful. You have to wait. If you want to delete your product A, just wait half a year, 1 year, and start the product B there and start to sell it also. Do it once and replicate, but don't remove those products that have been marketed, that have been getting some visibility, that some customers might be thinking and waiting if they happen to like and buy those. Then copy from others. As a startup company, you don't have resources. Just select the best things thinking about your business area that some other has done, or outside of your business area. Just copy those things. All of those things that can help your daily work. Just copy.
Obviously, if it's intellectual property rights stuff, maybe not so much, but within reason.
But different kind of procedures and selling methods and whatever. Just copy those because you don't have time. Concentrate on your business idea and do that well. That is the thing where you need to shine.
A lot of work. Very much work.
Yeah, huge amount of work. If you think that I have now design this product, if you think that you have to design all the processes also, if you think that I have to invent all the other things, it's not the time that way. It's enough that you invent your key product and then just use ready-made ready-made stuff, ready-made processes, and copy those from others.
Yeah.
That is the way of doing it. And you are not in here at this moment, but you need to organize your doings after you grow to something like 40 persons. This is typical. When you are small startup, everybody knows what all the others are doing. That is very easy. You can quickly say that, okay, we need to do this, we test this, we modify these things, and you can say to everybody at the same time, okay, you 4 persons there, we just modify this thing and we test it tomorrow. But if you have 40 persons, it's not going to work. You need to have a processes. And quite often, it might be useful to hire a new CEO at that phase. It might be so that you have invented a good product, good thing, and you are very good at starting the company. But you might not be very good on running company and doing those things when company grows.
It's a common problem in startups. You're sort of really good at making this sort of 40-person, maybe less than 40 people. This organization keeps rolling and evolving and changing all the time, but then after a certain point it's not really viable anymore, and you need someone who's at the helm with experience and knows sort of how to delegate a bit more, maybe not manage as much.
And you might jump and start new startup.
That
is quite
during
common.
this time. How is going to be your position in the startup company, in the company?
Is it a general question? You mean if there is a new CEO or what?
Yeah, if there is a new CEO.
Yeah, I mean it's quite common that there is a new CEO that is running the daily business, and you can be founder or CTO or CFO, whatever is your background, and you can concentrate on those things that you like most. If the innovation is your idea, then you are some kind of innovation primus motor in the company.
Or you can just be like a tourist and just walk around and see.
It depends. If it works well, you can be the one who creates new business ideas there or does something that is beneficial for the company. But the CEO takes care of this not so nice business running.
How would be your power of decision during this time? About
I guess it depends. If you're a majority shareholder, then you're essentially still a shot caller. You make all the important decisions. I mean, it depends on what kind of sort of rule set you build in the company. But a lot of people, I think, like to sort of hold on to power, at least in the sense of having the majority shares and sort of affecting that way.
You must be careful.
the new CEO can fire you.
That's what happened to Steve Jobs at Apple. He gave away too much, and then they decided, okay, you're gone. And then he had to.
He came back.
Yeah, it took a while, and it wasn't fun apparently, but he came back.
Yeah.
But at the end, he was left only with 1 share.
Yeah.
Even till the very end.
Just so he could go to the shareholders meeting and yell.
What is the real difference between founder and co-founder? How co-founder help founder? How they named as co-founder?
I think that this is just a naming thing. I mean, it might be that founder and co-founder, they might have to accept the same shares of the company, and it depends how you define it.
They have agreements.
Yeah.
And also, if one of the founders is more of a media person, and if it's a company that's going to be a lot in the media, it's probably best to put that person as the founder and the other person as the co-founder who sort of runs the back office stuff.
What kind of agreement you can make with your team member in the beginning without paying them, because you are not paying them? Can you be able to fire them if you think that they are not? I mean, they have worked with you like 6 months, and you decide you want to fire them. You was not paying them, but they have worked.
So I'm guessing that they're paid in shares, or so they're getting. I'm guessing that it's sort of an equity deal for them, that you promise that you're going to get shares of the company if you work for us, something like that. Or are they just not getting paid at all? Which I don't think you're going to have. They're very motivated employees.
Why would you want to fire them?
because you think that they are not doing exactly what you want them
They're
to
doing
do.
as much as you're paying them.
They are doing nothing, they are doing nothing. It's equal.
You don't know how to sum up your startup. You first need to if you're alone and just find someone that do something for you and just fire it out. Yeah, you did well.
I discussed with the CEO and I asked him, how did you agree with the person who was working with you? How did you agree to work with him like 2 years without any paper sign? He said he was free to work with me and to not work.
Okay. I'm guessing that there might be some sort of a equity share kind of deal there. For example, if someone works for 2 years, they get maybe a percentage of the shares, and if they do everything that they're supposed to do, maybe on a monthly basis, you put sort of a small slice of the shares. But yeah, it sounds like a strange situation.
Do you have to sign a paper before starting with him?
Yeah, I think it's Finnish law. You have to have work agreements.
Yeah, it's useful to do this and sign some kind of agreement that we start the company with this kind of rules, and then you work with those, and then everybody knows the rules and ways of doing, and then it's much easier.
Yeah.
It's difficult to later to say that okay, you have not been working.
I'll just be taking all of the company. I mean, essentially anything that might be something that could be disputed later, make an agreement on it, something in writing. It's really important. I think Facebook had a problem with that.
Yeah, sure.
At some point, they didn't have everything done in writing, so then they had to fight in court for quite a while. And one guy came up on top, but I'm guessing the other people weren't too happy about it. So everything in writing.
And the longer you wait, more complicated it goes.
Yeah, that's true.
So you better be prepared to do it in the beginning.
I think there was
or as soon as possible.
2 questions. Okay.
I was just wondering if you have some information about calculating valuations, fundraising.
Yeah, they are coming.
Okay.
Just after this one.
There's another question here.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know if this is also coming, but is there a limit, a number of founders or co-founders that you shouldn't have more than maybe 5 or?
I don't think there's anything set in stone, but yeah, if it's 7 or 8 people and you have the same amount of shares, it might be difficult without having someone sort of at the helm to make the decisions. If there's a lot of people sort of with equal shares, it's going to get complicated because people want to pivot, maybe change the business plan a bit, and others don't want to do that, and then it gets quite complicated. But I don't think there's room for that. No.
I have not heard that there is some kind of rule, but typically the amount of founders is not so big. Of course, later there comes more people. You hire some good person and you give him or her some part of the shares, and that is how typically the startup companies grow. But quite often there is the decision-making team that it's not so huge.
Usually they are board members. The number of board members, they just decide about everything.
Yeah.
It's not about the founders.
Yeah.
And it have to be impair in French. They say impair. I mean, there have to be like one more 3,
Yeah, you have to have a
7.
an equal number, so
Yeah.
you get actually decisions made, and you don't end up in just half and half voting for different things.
But if you don't have any questions, we jump into this selling to investors, so meaning valuations and all the other stuff, what is related to selling to investors. So when startup company grows, you need to have a lot of investment rounds. And it means that you need to pitch your company to investors several times. And you need to be prepared to show consistent results after every round. So normally investors say that we are giving you this amount of money, and then they expect some results, and you need to give those results, and then you are able to pitch the next round, and then you get the money, then you create the results, and then you grow. But if you drop from the cycle and don't create the results, it's going to be difficult to get a new round. So it means that failing is possible at every stage, but you need to be careful and realistic what you promise to do when you get a specific amount of money and time. You need to know what to do and be realistic. So if you over promise your performance, that might be a problematic. But we will discuss about this later. And quite often investors are looking for what kind of personalities you have. They might not be always so interested in your product. I mean, if you have a good team, if you have good connections, that is quite important. So you need to have, of course, your product or business area, but you can fail with very good business area and business product if you don't have a good team. So concentrate on having also a good team, and if you have a good team, it's easier to do this pitching to your investors.
What is the price for the money?
We are going to have that also later. So I mean,
Sure. So essentially, the main thing you're going to be thinking about is the pitch itself. You're going to be doing a lot of those at different rounds of investment, maybe even at the seed phase if you have to convince your family members to give you some money to get started. You have to prepare really well for those. If there's any questions that the investors don't get a pretty much instant answer to, that's going to be a red flag for them. They're going to be wondering what's happening. If you don't know the numbers maybe, or you don't know about the competitors, or you don't know about the specifics of a business plan, that's a big problem for them. And you sort of have to make sure that your core message and the important information that you're giving out is available and clear and easy for them to access. There's not really something set in stone for what the pitch should be like, but there's been a pretty much, it's a good blueprint to go after. Essentially, there has to be a problem in the market that you can solve. And the solution has to have large enough in the market that it makes sense to pursue. You also have to, like Aki said, the team has to be almost the main part, because the team makes or breaks what's going to happen. And it's also good to have the competitors around. You can easily point to them saying, okay, they're doing this kind of a turnover with this kind of a product, but ours is better, so we should make more. And it's good to also sort of go through what you've already gone through to get to this point where you're asking for maybe a B round or a C round of funding. And I think at the core of all of those messages should be that you want to be more, you want to grow, you want to expand, you want to be better, and that's why you're seeking for the investment or the expertise of the investors or maybe their contacts. Right, so now that we've talked what the pitch should be like, we can go through who you're going to be pitching to. So essentially, it's usually a business angel who's at the earlier rounds. Business angel is usually a private person, not a part of an organization like a venture capital company. And they're usually between 35 and 65, and they've worked in different managerial positions in large companies, or they've been entrepreneurs themselves. So that's where they sort of have the capital to fund other companies. You have to take this into account. Usually business people don't value soft values that much, especially when you're pitching to them. So they don't really care about what kind of a happy company culture you're going to be cultivating or how many beanbags you're going to have in your office. They're more interested in what kind of relevant information you have on growth and maybe scalability. It's usual to see about between 10 and 40% of what the investors are going to be asking, especially at early stages. They try to get as much as they can, but you sort of have to lock down a number that you're happy to part with without feeling sorry later. And yeah, venture capital companies usually come later in this stage, maybe B round or C round of funding.
Should we start like funding by say Finvera banks and all that first before going to investors? Or
that depends a bit on the business and sort of what you're going after. Sometimes Finvera is good for money, but they might not have the same connections, or there might be a disconnect there. So quite often, if there is something left of the seed money, it's good to involve the investors just for the contacts and for their expertise, but not to rule out the other companies. Actually, I think it's the next slide. No, it's a few slides from now on.
Wait a moment.
We're going to be going through it.
Typical thing in Finland, for example, with Tekes, if you want to get some loan from Tekes and some investment from Tekes, is that you have your own share. You have got some investors that put some money in there, and then you can apply for loan or investments from Tekes. So quite often you have some seed investors in there before you're applying some more money from other sources. So that is quite typical.
How to find these investors?
There's going to be
it's coming.
Yeah.
Bunch of opportunities to connect. Then a bit about the valuation. So the valuation in Finland usually refers to the value of the company before there's an investment into it. So essentially the company as its current state. Then what's known as a post-money valuation, that's what is everything combined. There's the money that the investor puts in, and there's also the sweat equity, what it's called, essentially the work that the investor is going to be doing for you. Maybe they have technology that they can use to help you, or maybe they have already connections that show up in the network equity investments. Let's say you have a physical product that you want to get into maybe K or S stores in Finland, but you don't have the connections. It's kind of hard to get new stuff in there, and they might be asking for money for the shelf space, or an unreasonable amount of money for the shelf space. And if the investor can get you in those stores, it's quite a lot of work. So that all goes down to the post-money valuation. And that changes on every investor. So maybe some investors can get you into the stores, but maybe some investors are also willing to work with you more. Maybe share their information that they have about field or a subject. So when you're thinking about valuations, you always should sort of take that in mind when you do the final calculation and think about what the company would be worth after the investment. And has anyone watched Dragon's Den or Shark Tank?
Yes.
So you've seen, it's essentially, for those who don't know, a show where people go and pitch their ideas to a group of entrepreneurs or people who have a lot of resources, and there's quite often a big disconnect between what people are asking and what their companies are actually worth. So some people have a starting stage idea, they have a great idea, but it's only a PowerPoint presentation, they have nothing else to really show for it. And they might ask for €1 million for 10% of their company. And investors just turn that down because it doesn't make any sense for them. So there's good tools to use for that. Maybe one good free tool is called Angel Tool. I think we'll be leaving a link to that in the slides that you can download after the presentation. And if you're not comfortable using a tool like that, you can use this as a good rule book. I mean, obviously it's not set in stone as well, but it's sort of a reference point. So if you have a working MVP or a prototype, it's about $250,000 working product and market, and you have proven sales, you might be asking for $500,000, and a stabilized business with established sales, you can go over $1 million. But obviously it depends on a lot of factors, and this is just guidelines.
So right now, if you have a great idea and a PowerPoint, you have 100,000, it's worth 100,000.
Depending on the idea, yeah. But if you try to ask more, investors are probably going to be like, oh, okay, maybe not at this point.
What's again working MVP again?
That's a working minimum viable product.
Okay, working.
So you have this basic, for example, it doesn't have many features.
Beta version of the product? Beta version of any product?
Yeah.
It might not be beta version. Beta version might be for internal testing. MVP is released out for some group of your potential clients quite often.
I didn't understand the price.
Right. So it's something you can use as sort of a rule book for the value of the company. So when you're thinking about the evaluation, for example, the post-money valuation. If it's just a PowerPoint presentation with a really good idea, it's probably not going to have a lot of this additional things to pump up the value.
What does it mean, sweat equity investment? Maybe I didn't catch that.
Okay, so that was essentially what the investor is going to, and maybe the work they do for you, be worth. So if they're doing, maybe, for example, they're technology gurus in some sector, and they're going to be coding the part of your software that you didn't know how to do before. So maybe that's sort of a partnership thing that you're going to get value from. So that's essentially called sweat equity.
So it means that they are doing it for free for you, and it creates more value.
If they are in 30 companies, how can they put any reasonable effort? I doubt really that they can put if they are investor in 30 companies. Maybe they can give advice and open networking opportunities, but to call for you, I doubt anybody can do it unless it's a movie or something.
Yeah, but that's, the investor can be connected to Elon Musk, just one call, and that's it, that's right.
Yeah.
And then it takes your idea and doesn't give you anything. This is how it happens, in my opinion, but okay. If you don't have an IPR, you don't have anything. An idea is not protected by anything.
Obviously, before you go into any discussions with investors, you should have all the documentation, including all the IPR and stuff like that. There's a good list of that. We'll be linking the resources also into the material that you can download after this. But that has a pretty good established rule set of what you should do before the investment, and what kind of contracts you should sign, and what kind of contracts you shouldn't sign.
Going back, let's say, to the stabilized business, established sales.
Yeah.
How much sales do you need to be called like established to be worth 1.2 million?
I guess that depends on a lot of factors. If it's a physical product, you're probably going to need distribution and stuff like that. You're going to have to be in shops already, and you're going to have to prove that for a set period of time, your sales have been going up or staying at this rate. But obviously,
you know, when you sell a land, in my opinion, what I heard is like you need to multiply how much you make in 1 year by 10, and that is the value of the land. Is it similar approach here also?
Times the revenue, I think he's saying how many times.
How many times the
revenue
per year? Yeah. How much?
So if you have established, if you can say that, okay, for the past 6 months we've been making this much money and it's been growing, obviously that's a really good reference point to use in the valuation of the company, because then you can sort of calculate what it could be in the future, and also what the investors can add to that.
I think what he wants to ask is there like a price, like if it's bringing in 100,000, is that worth 1.2 million? If it's bringing in, and the service, let's say service.
Yeah, I think that also depends on the field where you're working, because some fields have a really low profit margin.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So if you're in retail, your profit margin is probably not going to be that big. But if you do something else and you have larger profit margins, it might be better. So it's very situational. It's really hard to say without knowing.
And critical thing here is so that you have to show that you are selling. But the investors and those who think about your company valuation, they are trying also to follow that your selling continues. If you are selling and then you are failing because the first users of your product, they don't like it, and then you don't sell more. They quite often wait that you go to a specific level and then you go to the next level, so you grow. But quite often it might happen that, okay, the first users don't like the product and the sales go down. So it means that you have consistent growth with your product. That is the meaning of having this kind of selling product.
Yeah, it's also a big problem in startups. someday the founders sort of wake up and realize, okay, we don't have enough sales, we need to put a lot of resources into sales, and then the people who normally do something else, they're also a part of the sales team for a while. They're calling up leads, they're making sure everything works. And you get sales for a while, and then it looks good, so people go back to doing maybe development or technology additions, and then suddenly you notice, okay, all the leads were used, and now you're back at the bottom with no sales. So it can't look like a roller coaster. It's not a good sign. Right, so the valuation gap, what it is and how it's formed. Essentially, the valuation gap is what kills most negotiations between investors and startups. Obviously, you seek to maximize your valuation so you can keep as many shares as you can, while the investor wants to minimize your valuation and to increase the amount of their profit later. So you sort of have to find the balance there. And also, if your valuation is bad, so you make maybe a bit too much money in the first round, and maybe the company actually didn't grow as much as you wanted before the B round investment, you're in trouble because it sort of can drag you into a financial dead end. If your first valuation was too large, you didn't grow enough, you ask for more money, obviously, to grow more, but then they look, okay, we can't get enough shares for the money you're asking, so that might end up being a problem. But I mean, that's obviously a positive problem if someone wants to give you too much money. So most people don't have to worry about that. But it has happened and it is risky. And then the best place is to look for these investments. Obviously, early funding rounds, seed funding is usually done by founders and maybe their relatives or friends. When you get to the first real round of funding, it's usually best to, go after these angel investors because they're probably best for you to scale up and help you. So Fiban is a good place to find angel investors, especially Finnish angel investors. And usually it's for smaller companies with a turnover under 1 million, but it doesn't really matter. You can go to them without having to worry about your turnover. Arctic 15 is for startups and growth companies. It's a business-focused event, good for networking, good for finding investors. Also, I think they have this speed dating thing with the investors there. Gospel Open is the Finnish conference.
Arctic Startup is a company that is working here in this building. Okay. Arctic Startup arranges these kind of events, and this is much smaller than Slush, and this is working actually quite well because it's concentrating a smaller amount of companies, and we have been present there, and it used to be very useful.
So they lend on startups, Arctic 15. Something. Is that what you're talking about? Arctic 15. Yeah. But is this also for companies that, like you have the idea, you have the business plan? Is that also applicable for this?
Yeah, there are a lot of investors and there are a lot of startups presenting themselves and speed dating. In all of those events, it's the place to meet potential clients, potential investors. There are those 20-minute meetings, and those are quite useful. Actually, we are also present quite often in those kind of events, and personally, I have had typically something like 20 different meetings with potential startups that would like us to work with them or cooperate with them or do software development, whatever. But that is quite typical amount of meetings that I have at Arctic 50. So, and Slush is much bigger, but it's not so speed dating oriented. It's so big that it has huge problems, so that people don't actually have enough time to go to speed dating place, and it's not working so well because so huge amount of participants in there. Mm-hmm. But recommended for every startup, these and other similar events for speed dating, for example, investors.
Yeah. And if you're focusing on international markets and you're looking for a big investment, Slush might be the best place to maybe start. Gospel Open is more focused on starting in companies. So essentially, if you need to pivot, if you realize that maybe this business plan isn't working, maybe as perfectly as you thought it would be, and you decide to move over to something else, but you already have this all sort of established infrastructure. You have the people, you have the team, everything works. Then maybe that's the best place to go. And Vigo Accelerators is essentially several different accelerators focused on a different field or different investment phase. Maybe some of them focused on B or C rounds, or maybe some of them focused just on industry.
How do you choose which one is right, I guess, for you also? That's
At Vigo? You sort of,
let's say, yeah.
out of all these 5?
No, but in general, like, how do you choose which option is better for your?
I mean, obviously, as many sort of offers you can feel is best.
Yeah.
So you should probably think about talking to as many investors as you can. So you sort of know the field. If maybe Arctic 15 didn't have the people you wanted to connect with, maybe they're going to be as much. But there's no surefire way sort of to tell that, okay, you have to be at this event or it won't happen. It's different.
Are they interested in this specific market, or they are like worldwide market? I think Vigo might have focuses also geographically. I haven't looked into Vigo that much that I could sort of say. But I'm guessing that would be the best place to look if you want to focus specifically on some region or some market. Later rounds for investments, usually people think about crowdfunding or these traditional channels such as Kickstarter. Traditional is in air quotes because, well, it's not that traditional, it's still a pretty new thing. Venture capital companies usually come in after A rounds, and crowdfunding via new channels such as ICOs. And ICOs is actually on the next slide. ICO is an initial coin offering, which basically means that you're going to be launching a new cryptocurrency. They're somewhat similar to crowdfunding, except you're not going to be getting, or the investor is not going to be getting maybe a working product or shares. They're going to be getting a part of the digital tokens or the cryptocurrency used. Currently, it's quite a hot trend around the world, and actually this says May 2016 is when it really started. And just during 2017 alone, there's been 3.2 billion worth of funds gathered via ICOs. Obviously, it's a really new market, so there's also no surefire way to know what works for you. Usually, those tokens or coins have something unique to them. And also, a big thing about them is that they're tradable. So essentially, if it's a currency that has other uses than just being a currency, maybe you can trade it for marketing-related services or something like that. People see value in it in the future, and then they want to trade those coins. So essentially, you might be getting not only people interested in investing in your company, but also interested in investing in the idea of your coin or your token, because it might grow in value later. So that's one thing to maybe keep an eye out if it looks like it might be suitable for your business.
We have created several of those for different companies, and this is so hot topic that we get huge amount of those leads. And typically, if you are interested in this kind of cryptocurrency creation, it takes something like 3 weeks calendar time, but it needs a lot of things to be done before creating it. Actually, the creation of cryptocurrency takes something like 5 minutes, but that is not the key thing. It's a key thing. How do you create those so-called smart contracts, and who are the target group of your cryptocurrency, and what is the value of it, and what happens if all the coins are not sold, and a lot of these kind of questions. But we are the experts on helping you if you need these kind of services.
And we're going to be doing a talk on just ICOs and blockchains in general in about 2 weeks. So if you're interested at all, I suggest you come. I think it's on Tuesday, but in 2 weeks anyway.
14th of this month, we will be presenting here about these cryptocurrencies more.
Which day?
I think it's in the middle of the week, maybe Tuesday or Thursday.
I have a question about this Bitcoin. I mean, some time ago, it was like illegal in many countries. How is it now? How is the situation?
Right. So I'm not sure if Bitcoin has ever been It's legal in itself. I mean, it's such a new field that they're still creating legislation for it, so. But I don't think it's been.
I think they're still in the midst of controversies.
Yeah, there's a bunch of controversy, and a few countries have banned.
China has banned.
Yeah, a few countries have banned ICOs. That's I think that happened a few months back.
But I suppose that the background for this is that they might want to create their own cryptocurrency, and then they just decide that okay, you can't trade with these ones, and this is quite common way of saying that these are not valid, but wait a minute, we are going to create our own.
I think Russia just recently announced that they're going to be creating their own cryptocurrency. Yeah, Russia.
How when you make an ICO and you get some coins and some virtual money, how do you legally make it real money to pay salaries, to buy ads, to spend it on your needs?
Right. So usually it's going to be coming. The funds are going to be coming to you in Bitcoins or Ether, which is another cryptocurrency. They're quite widely in circulation, and you can change them back into legal money via these other channels. There are these channels, essentially exchanges. Works just like a stock exchange, where you can sort of purchase these digital coins or cryptocurrencies and trade them. And obviously, if it's a market with $3.2 billion circulating right now, there's quite a lot of exchanges.
For example, I have several of those exchanges here in my phone. I just can buy some cryptocurrencies in a few minutes and it's done. It's very.
How can you use the cryptocurrency? How can you use
you can buy products. There are some.
In store online, can you use it?
Yeah, I mean there are a lot of.
Bitcoin is not that much popular.
I think Amazon was the latest player in the field who sort of announced that they're going to be making Bitcoin purchases. Yeah. So you can pay with Bitcoins on Amazon, which is a pretty big thing.
It depends on the Bitcoin how the market
It
accepts.
takes a lot of time to gain in that market, and there's the other Bitcoin, Bitcoin, and the Bitcoin just started because this market was just wrong and have this support and then.
Bitcoin currently has, I mean, this is going into specifics, but they have a blockchain that's kind of slow, and that's why it's not. Maybe Bitcoins can't be used, and if you go to a store and you want to, buy milk, you're not going to use Bitcoins for that. But if you want to move money, maybe from a company to another, it's a bit easier because you don't have to sort of go through these normal channels where it might take several days, or a bank might take a 3% cut of the money that's being moved. And a lot of people don't want to pay that extra cut because it's just money moving. And if you can do that via Bitcoin, it's easy. But obviously, it's a new field.
You need to change it to the normal.
Yeah, but that's doable through these exchanges. I mean,
the bank accepted.
There are also some banks that are starting to use these cryptocurrencies. So different areas.
The country.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think any countries have banned trading with cryptocurrencies. It's just the ICOs that have been sort of banned. But they also might be motivated by the country wanting to start their own cryptocurrency.
But of course, there is a risk if there is 1,000 or 2,000 different kind of crypto coins available. There might be a situation that a lot of those have not very useful use. But if you are creating cryptocurrency, it's better that it's created for collecting investment money. But if it has something other use, then it's much better. For example, we have created for some Finnish company a cryptocurrency that they used to collect some investment money for the next software development round, but it's also going to be used as a payment method in their system. So then it has two usages, so it's much better.
Obviously, we recommend that it has another function to just being another cryptocurrency, because probably the market is going to be a bit rough. There's a lot of ICOs right now, so if it's just a new cryptocurrency, probably not going to drive interest in the same way if you have a function behind it.
Is there many of them available now, cryptocurrencies?
Yeah, I think there's a few thousand, correct?
Few thousand?
Yeah.
At least 1,000, but it's something like between 1,000 and 2,000. Quite a lot.
Yeah. I mean, obviously Bitcoin and maybe Ether. Most people know Bitcoin, and if you if you know what blockchains do, you probably also know Ether. So
Bitcoin is the name of the cryptocurrency.
Yeah, and it's a bit, because it's such a new field that the terminology is still a bit wonky. So Bitcoin means the coin, but it also sort of means the blockchain. Bitcoin has its own blockchain that transfers the money. So I think these are subjects that we'll go through extensively in a few weeks.
I have a question,
Yep.
and it's not related to this. Some companies provide incubation. They provide incubation program. So when to go for incubation, and do we need to pitch for that also? What type of pitch we should do as a startup?
I don't have any exact answer to that.
Yeah, it's one of those things that depends a lot on the circumstances, on what the incubator is offering, and sort of what the terms are. So we can sort of give you a surefire answer for that either. I think we have a few more slides left.
Then we have a quick look for software development. We discussed about this digital image of your company, and we look some things that needs to be taken care if you are a startup and want to have this digital image or software product. If your company wants to have a software product, what needs to be taught? Typical thing that comes with startup company is that you have those few founders, and perhaps one of those is technically oriented and started software development, and then you have created your own MVP product, and it's spread around, and the first customers are using it. But then there comes some bottlenecks. It might work very well with let's say 15 users, but then you target to have 10,000 or 20,000 users worldwide. And then you notice that, okay, it doesn't work, it's too slow, it looks bad, and so on. Then you need help. So spaghetti code and bottlenecks with the performance are quite typical things with software code if you have been doing this MVP by yourself. Quite often in startup companies, those software developers are not any expert software developers. They are just part of your team, and they have some experience. They select those tools that they know, and they just do the product. They don't comment the product. The product is just one mass of code, and it's not structurized. A lot of problems in there. So you need someone to fix the code, but you need to grow fast. And then you try to recruit some resources. You have this one software developer, you need to get 2 or 3 more, and then you have money. Investors have given you, let's say, 100,000 to 500,000 money, and they say that we need to see your results. And you try to recruit those persons, and you find out that it takes half a year, and then you find out that those guys that you were recruiting, they actually don't know. They haven't done it earlier. So these are typical things. And we find out these kind of things every day because we work with startups, and this is a typical thing. A lot of spaghetti code, a lot of this kind of bottlenecks that need to be fixed, and we are doing this all the time. So that's the reason that I'm warning you that this is happening. This is the end result of the thing that you need to do fast. You need to have features. You need to have all of those things to get investments. But this is the end result of it.
And also, if you're offering a developer a job, then come work for my startup, but you only can work here for 6 months because then the product's done, and then you can leave. They might not be super interested in getting a 6-month job if they want certain job stability, and they don't want to have to think about recruitment processes again afterwards.
Yeah. Then this monetarization. This is a critical thing to have the system that generates your money. If you have your product, you might want to have a web shop for the product, then someone might buy your product. Or you might want to have some payment integrations to your product if it's some kind of service, whatever. And then you need some kind of security solution. If it looks like unsecure, your customers will not buy. That is the thing that is going to happen. So critical thing, whatever you are selling, to have nowadays these kind of digital payment systems. So that's the reason that that almost every startup needs this kind of services. And then integrations to Facebook, integrations to different kinds of social media, integrations to those kind of systems that, if we think about some business area that you have a new solution, but it might be so that there are very old standardized solutions in that platform. You have a new thing that comes and gets some new features in there, and it's very useful. But you have to integrate those old environments. It's critical for the success of your product. And then you might have general application programming interface. You have a product, and some others can create some additional products. If you have those kind of products that are customizable, so that some other companies can add some features in there, it might mean that your product is more successful. And the more open your documentation is, and the more interfaces you have for the development, it means that it's more possible. I mean, this is the reason for these mobile phone platforms to be so successful. You can develop software to your mobile phone, and you can have a shop for buying the software to your mobile phone. Then you get new features into your mobile phone. Mobile phone is just a platform for different kind of applications.
Yeah, I have a question here. It's just a little complex question, but it's often asked in those startup environments. You do open system, and it allows other programmers to maybe even read your code and something. And then how do you protect your business model? Like, do you do patents, so any confidentiality protection, or is that your business model that is open for everybody, and then they can open code?
Typically, you don't open all code. I mean, you have your business idea and your key business. You protect that, and that is protected. And then you have these application programming interfaces that are open. You have documentation, and those interfaces are open, and then they can add some features. But your code is protected. Or if your business model is that you have open code, but then you sell services around that code. It depends.
I mean, in an ideal world, you're moving faster than your competitors, because at the phase where you're making your code available, you're already building something else. You're building maybe more integrations, or you're making it have more features. So even if your competitors try to copy, they'll be thinking one step. Yeah, one step.
I have a question. What exactly is API? I just know about it that it's application programming interface, and every company. Does every company have its own API? Like, I want to know more about it.
It depends. I mean, if you think some large ERP, CRM, whatever software, they typically have, or Microsoft Windows or whatever, they typically have some kind of application programming interface where you can have your additional product connected. And if you are designing your own software product, it's very useful to have some kind of application programming interface for communication to outside world. And actually, inside your product, you might have application programming interfaces. You have front end, that environment that is visible to end users. Then you might have application programming interface between front end and the back end. And back end is running somewhere in cloud.
Okay.
And then there might be some kind of application programming interface to database. So there might be internal application programming interfaces that simplify the coding. And then you have external for those additional things that you want to connect. It's typical that software has different kind of application programming interfaces. for different purposes.
For example, if you have a website that sells a product, you can sell it with the user interface in the browser, but you can also offer a programmatic interface for somebody else to sell it automatically from a computer program. So this is what it means. API gives an interface for other programs to buy it automatically from you, not free at the website. Via another interface, only computer-based. So it's
yeah, that is the reason for it. And this is one thing related to your resource scaling. You have got the investment round, you have created the product in a half a year, and then you run out of the money. Then you need downscale your resources very quickly, and then your product goes to field testing mode. It goes to the customers that are testing it. You are collecting some feedback from your customers. They see that, okay, this is fine, but they need these new features and these features that are there. Some of those are not working properly. They need different kind of user interface. And then during this phase, you are selling your product and your company for the new investment round. Then, okay, you got 1 million more money. Now you need to upscale your software developers. And then you start to build the next level of your software code. This is complicated. This is typical thing for startups. And this is a problem that very difficult to get software developers because you want to have them, for example, half a year, and then you actually need to draw them out and get back after half a year or whatever. So.
And it's beneficial to get the same people because then they know already what's been done. So it helps a lot to take away those empty hours of them just sort of going through the code, looking at what's happened before, and then starting to add the new things.
So is it difficult if somebody codes your program, then for somebody else to correct it or to change it? Or
it takes a while. Yeah. If the code is done properly, it's not a problem. But it still takes a while, a few days, or depending on the amount of the code.
It's not always that much easy. Sometimes it requires to know the concept behind all the things. Maybe you are a good developer, but you don't know about the concept that you are developing, and it takes a while.
Yeah. And some solutions how to do this scaling. So one of those things is do nearshoring. In Finland, it's a problem that currently they are saying that some 9,000 software developers are missing from Finland, and the estimation is that some 15,000 software developers is missing after a few years. But it's the same thing in a lot of places in Europe. So we are doing this spaghetti code cleanup quite quickly because, for example, our software developers, they have done it tens of times, and they know a lot of different business areas, so this is a quite big thing. So if you use experienced software developers, perhaps external resources, things might work faster.
Sorry, I came in late because I had to attend the university course. Can you just say what you do? What is your company?
Okay. We are a software development company, head office in Poland and started in Finland, and we have 50 developers approximately and work in different countries, have clients in the USA, Europe, Asia.
Okay,
and so we have been working some 8 years, and that is the background.
Okay, so if I need like a programming to be done for my company.
Yeah, we can help, no problem.
I'm at the right place.
Yeah.
Do you have a special price for new startup?
We have a special price in the sense that it's a lot cheaper to go through us than to go through a typical Finnish company.
Yeah, actually, our price level to compare to normal Finnish price level is approximately half.
Yeah.
So it's quite startup friendly, and that's the reason that we work with huge amount of startups. Yeah. We have a large experience base and very cost-efficient price level. So that's the reason that startups like us.
you have worked with startup, and you know that most startup in the beginning doesn't have money. So, do you take share, or you take cash?
We have done it a couple of times, but actually at this moment no, because we should have then more resources concentrating on this aspect, and we decided to concentrate on doing this software because that's our main business area. And but we have done earlier some investments to startup companies, and then when those companies have been starting to go well, then we jumped out from those. But that is not our main business, and we are not doing this at this moment.
Yeah, venture capital world is quite different from software development.
So then we should have totally different persons concentrating on that. But because there is enough work for us with this software development, so we decided to concentrate on software development.
Can we know the average price for a software?
It depends on the size and how many hours we spend on it. So usually our hourly rates are between 40 and 45 euros an hour per developer. So normally in Finland you're going to be looking at 80, 85, some places 100, 120, yeah. So
depending on how much people
are working on the project.
Yeah.
So if it's 8 or more, I think it's 40, and then it starts scaling up.
If you are starting with one, it's typically 45 euros. But if you are willing to have some cryptocurrencies, then it's a little bit higher. It's approximately 85 euros per hour.
And there is no way to press a button so that he speed up.
Actually,
I don't think our programmers can drink any more coffee, so that's they're going at max capacity.
Actually, the software development is the thing that the more you have experience, then the faster you are. And our way of doing software development is that our requirement for recruitment is that software developers have something like 5 years of experience, and they have done a lot of these kind of things that we would like them to do in this specific business area or with this specific technology. So that is how it goes with us. And when you are selecting software developer, you need to select the one that knows what he's doing. So that's the key point. Then it's going to be cheap. But if you have a software developer that doesn't know, we have been doing a lot of corrections after those kind of software developers that have not been knowing what they have been doing. So there are a lot of startups that have lost a lot of money with software developers that didn't know exactly what they should be doing. So then we need to refactor the code, and then in a way they have lost some of the money that they have used for those kind of software developers.
Experienced developers are very expensive, and they are not usually free to work with you. So usually you need to find some experienced people and join junior guys. And because when they know what you should do, they instruct the junior guy, you do this, you do that, you do this, and then you go cheaper instead of having 10 experienced guys, or you have only 2 experienced and 8 junior developers.
Quite often it's so if we work with startups, our software developers can work as members of your software team. If you have all software developers, our team or developers can be members of your team, or then we can take care of some specific part of the software development, or then we can concentrate on correcting the code or finding the bugs or testing, or you name the different kind of areas. But it's quite common that our developers are part of your team.
Do you have a software online that can help startup? It can be like developing apps or, I don't know, services. Do you have some program online?
That is not
some product that you are selling?
That is not a simple thing. I mean, there is no specific product that can automate the software development at this moment. There are a huge amount of different technologies and platforms and tools that automate these things, and that's the reason that You need to have experienced software developers that they know, okay, I use, for example, Java and Angular and React and Android platforms and that kind of stuff. You need to select, okay, we have these 4 or 5 different possibilities for this specific purpose that you have. Then it's our expertise to tell, okay, if you use this one, this is cheaper and faster, and this another one has these and these benefits. Then we select with you that, okay, we use these technologies. Then we have different kind of libraries for solving some graphics, different kind of libraries if you want to have some 3-dimensional view, if you want to have some database and connections outside and translations. It's not so easy. It's a huge amount of tools, and there you need the expertise. But there is no one tool that is doing the whole stuff.
I think our hosts are looking like we might have to start moving outside.
Yeah, we will not kick anybody out, but I think we would like to start putting tables away. So if you guys want to reconvene in the
I want to
lounge.
say thank you.
Thanks to you guys very much. Are you able to stay for a few more minutes?
Yeah.
We'll have questions? Okay. Then if you don't mind, we'll just start cleaning up around
Yeah.
you.
We'll come over to the lobby part.
Okay. And welcome to the
I just have one question.